Thanks for joining us today. We're here with Clearing the Air with Pinion Ag Advisors. I'm here today with Keaton Dugan, and today's topic, it's been a hot topic for feels like a couple years now, but we get the question all the time from farmers and clients alike. Many want to know about the IRS Section 180 tax code. Get a lot of questions about soil fertility, depreciations, what else can I add to it, equipment, buildings on the property. There's a lot of confusion around the who, what, why, how this can be applied from the agronomy side of things to the taxation piece. Keaton's with us. He is the lead advisor here at Pinion for their commodity crops, as well as being a CPA and one of our thought leaders on this topic. And we brought you in, Keaton, today to kind of set us all straight and clear the air with some of these questions we get all the time. And just to start, why do you think Section 180, which is the IRS guidance for soil fertility deductions, is getting so much attention right now? Hasn't this been around for a while now?
Been around for a long time. And I think that when I think of the attention that it's been getting, it's really important to go back in history and let's go look at 1947. This is kind of when the discussion started. Wow. And the IRS made a ruling that a farmer who applied lime to a particular field needed to depreciate it over time, which creates a pretty big burden for farmers and landowners. And that's really just an unreasonable expectation. And so 1960, Section 180 comes along, which then allows farmers to go ahead and deduct nutrients when they're applied, not necessarily when they're used agronomically. And so the reason that's getting so much attention now is it's a lot easier to get that data. Soil sampling has come a long ways. The technology is there. The research has been done. The documentation can be done. And so we're seeing a lot more people take advantage of this, especially during a tough time when anything can help move the needle. It can help. Farmers are looking to get into deductions that they can.
Yeah, and it does seem that Section 180, the term, has been kind of a catch-all, and I know it's an IRS code number and everything, but depending on the misconceptions of what all goes into that, maybe it's easier if you could clarify what is not in Section 180, or what does Section 180 not include? Yeah,
and I think that I would say it's not limited to Section 180. Section 180 is very much a Band-Aid for what we just talked about. There are other code sections that can be utilized for deductions, like we're just talking about now. And so I often refer to it more as excess or maybe even residual fertilizer deductions instead of referring to it directly as Section 180.
Okay. I will try to adopt that moving forward. And as far as the excess nutrient deduction here, who typically qualifies? We get a lot of questions of, I just bought a small plot of land. I have a ton of family land. I've got acres I bought 10 years ago. I guess who typically qualifies for this deduction?
Yeah, good question. And qualification is the most important piece of it. The tax code itself can be really difficult to interpret for this particular topic. There was a private letter ruling in 1991 that cleared up some of this, not everything, but some of it. First thing to look at is that it needs to be newly purchased or inherited land. There are cases where inherited land can qualify. Secondly, it really does need to be used in agriculture, whether that's ranching or production ag. And then lastly, the taxpayer needs to have basis in the land. So if there's a 1031 exchange, for example, this could cause your land basis to be extremely low. You might not qualify. So there's a lot of different nuances here, but I'd say those are the biggest ones for qualification.
Okay. And I'm sure they find a lot of things in soil. What types of soil costs and expenses qualify for this, without raising any flags? I guess what are types that don't qualify?
So we see a little bit of everything. The biggest drivers of the soil nutrient deduction will typically be P and K, which to me, no surprise that phosphorus, potassium are the biggest primary nutrients for healthy plant growth. Nitrogen is often left out. It dissipates quickly, is used up quickly. Depending on the location, we see lots of different micronutrients, oftentimes maybe calcium. So it's extremely variable by location.
Okay. And again, Keaton, like we talked about in the beginning here, we get questions all the time, and it does seem to be a risk threshold for some, and there is some gray and how long back, how much, these kinds of things. I guess, broadly speaking, what are the biggest concerns about the excess nutrient deduction that you'd like to address, or at least to kind of show people the risk here going into something like this?
Sure. And there definitely is additional risk here. So I'd say that, number one, if you're trying to go back more than 1 year, talk to your CPA about understanding the risks of doing so. And then secondly, and this is just a question I get a lot, is that, farmers who may be farming a property, cash renting it, crop sharing it, and then purchase it, they get a lot of questions, or I get a lot of questions of if they still qualify. And so as you're purchasing that property, even if you had been farming it before, you do still qualify.
So if you purchase land within that next year of the purchase date, you're completely in the clear.
Potentially, if you meet the other qualifications, yes.
Okay. Are there other important limitations kind of to be aware of as farmers and landowners are looking into this?
I do think that the one thing that's really important to think about is that the intention of holding the land. So if you're going to potentially sell it within the next 10 years, I would say that this probably isn't the best use of your cash to get the property sampled, as the deduction can be really expensive to document. And if that land were to be sold in the next 10 years, you are looking at recapturing that gain.
Okay. And again, aside from the bare minimum basic soil sample test, is there any other testing or documentation needed, and what all needs to be gathered before you can move forward with this potential deduction?
Yep. So it is no secret that this deduction is a little bit more gray as an interpretation of some code sections and getting aggressive with them. So I would recommend putting the best documentation possible together. I would say that this means a third-party soil test by a professional agronomist. You really want to ensure that the soil sampling density that they're sampling is high. We typically recommend anywhere from at least 2.5 to 5 acres. And then the next thing, ensure that your agronomist is using a laboratory for the results. I think this accomplishes two things. Number one, the best possible documentation, but also it gives you a soil sample report that can be used for sound agronomic decisions on your farm, not just for tax purposes.
Okay. And again, I know, there are some risk involved that we addressed. Are there common issues that can just be avoided with just some basic proactive planning and decisions and consulting with your advisors?
Absolutely. I'd say the best advice I can give you for proactive planning is to consult with your CPA. Always consult with your CPA before you make a purchase. I'd say, number one there is think about that you're purchasing it in the correct place, the correct entity, the correct individual. And then, discuss if you qualify with your CPA before spending the money to get the sampling done. There are so many nuances with every different situation when it comes to taking an excess nutrient deduction. And so, yes, always consult with your CPA before spending the dollars to have the sampling done.
Okay, good advice. And again, like we talked about too, farming has been challenging to say the least these past couple of years. This is obviously a hot topic right now because people are looking for an edge financially wherever they can get it. Are these land nutrients the only deductions that producers should be asking their CPA about when purchasing land?
So absolutely not. I'd say all too often I've had consultations with prospects where we see that deductions are being left on the table, not just on the soil nutrients, but what can be capitalized on the property. So considering what might be there's the obvious stuff. There's fences, cattle guards, tiling, maybe sheds, buildings, irrigation. But also consider erosion control structures, for instance, grassed waterways, terracing, man-made ponds, even rocked roadways across for access paths. These are all capitalizable assets that your CPA should be taking as deductions on your return. So Other things to think about. If you're on the Ogallala Aquifer, for instance, evaluate whether depletion is right for you. So this is where our tax team at Pinion works really closely with the land advisory team to dig a little deeper into the property and understand where those deductions might lie.
Oh, thanks so much, Keaton. That addresses a lot of the questions we get. And again, don't do this alone. There is some risk involved, but make sure you do the diligence to make sure you're not leaving money on the table with something like this, especially when you're buying land. It's been great to have this conversation, get all this on the table, clear some of the air about Section 180 nutrient deductions. For any additional questions, we're always here at Pinion advisors who can talk you through some of these risks and questions you have. Reach out. We'd be happy to discuss it with you anytime. We'll talk to you next time here on Clearing the Air.